As block 1 and block 2, agriculture, forestry and other land uses. So today we shall discuss the energy, industry and transport systems, that is block 3 of MEV 023. So this block 3, that is energy, industry and transport systems. So you have 4 units. Unit 10 is energy systems. Unit 11 is biofuels. Unit 12 is industry. Unit 13 is transport system. So first let us take up the first one, that is the unit 10, energy systems. So in this unit, we are going to discuss the different types of energy sources like heat, light, motion, etc. So energy, it comes in different forms like the thermal, radiant, and kinetic. So it is one of the component of a socio-economic development in order to raise the standard of living and to improve the quality of human life. So fossil fuel like coal, lignite, petroleum, natural gas, etc. Solar, wind, hydro, and nuclear power are the chief sources of energy resources. So there are two types of energy, the renewable energy and non-renewable energy. So the non-renewable includes the firewood and fossil fuels. They are also known as the conventional energy sources, as they are being used for supply of energy since the time immemorial. So they are also called as stock resources. So solar, wind, hydropower, biogas are renewable sources of energy. So the firewood and the fossil fuels, they are the non-renewable, whereas the solar, wind, hydropower, biogas, these are the renewable sources of energy. So these renewable sources of energy, they are quickly recycled or renewed in nature. So they are also referred to as the new or non-conventional energy. Non-conventional energy resources, because the techniques to exploit have been developed very recently. So they form an alternative source. So in this unit, we are going to discuss the different conventional energy resources. Conventional energy means non-renewable, and the renewable is non-conventional. So in this unit, we are going to discuss the non-renewable and the renewable sources and the factors which drives the diversification in energy supply. So first is the non-renewable energy sources. So the non-renewable energy sources, it mainly the fossil fuels, which consists of the coal, lignite, petroleum, and its products, and natural gas. So the first fossil fuel is the coal. Coal is made up of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and sulfur. There are three different types of coal, namely anthracite, bituminous, and lignite. So anthracite coal is the hardest and it has got more carbon. Lignite is the softest and it is low in carbon but high in hydrogen and oxygen content. Whereas the bituminous, it is between the anthracite and lignite. So coal is used for fuel for domestic uses, locomotive, engines, industries, thermal power generation, extraction of metals, minerals, production of coal, gas, etc. So, but coal as a solid material is very difficult to mine and ship than the liquid, that is petroleum or natural gas. So 75% of the coal which is produced every year, it is burned in power plants to produce electricity. So methods to convert to coal to gaseous fuels, which is called as coal gasification, or liquid fuels, which we call it as coal liquefaction, exists. But but they are not particularly economical unless the price of oil and natural gases are high. So there are techniques which are available which can be converted into which can coal where coal can be converted into liquid fuels, and they are not economically competitive with the liquid fuels from petroleum. So current approaches to coal liquefaction to break the complex network structure of coal into the fragments is under research. So the products are treated with hydrogen under high pressure to produce a liquid similar to petroleum, and further it is distilled, reformed, and can be used to the products similar to those obtained from petroleum. The second fossil fuel is the petroleum. So, petroleum is pumped from the ground and it is a mixture of thousands of organic compounds like alkanes, cycloalkanes, alkenes, aromatic hydrocarbons, etc. So, the transport sector it consumes about 40% of the petroleum products, followed by industries, households, and agriculture. So the gasoline petroleum is converted into useful products such as gasoline by distillation, cracking, and reforming. So the petroleum is heated at a higher temperature, that is at 400 degrees centigrade, during which it becomes a mixture of liquid and vapor. So this mixture is called as the feedstock, which is introduced into the refining tower, where it gets condensed into different layers. So these are different fractions, each of which usually consists of a mixture of compounds are used in natural and bottled gas to liquids used in fuels and lubricants to gummy solids as tar on roads and roofs. So the third one is the natural gas. So, natural gas is a combustible gas found underground, and primarily it is composed of 72 to 90% methane. So, the gas from each well has a different composition, and the value of other components affects the value of gas. So, this natural gas is a fast emerging alternative substitute for oil and an uh, important gas or energy source for future. So, India gas reserves have been increased several fold in the last 10 years, and the natural gas is produced in Assam, Tripura, Gujarat, and western offshores of India. So next coming to the renewable energy technologies or renewable energy sources. So the one which we studied is the non-renewable. So the renewable energy sources, it can be renewed like solar energy, wind energy, geothermal energy, tidal power, hydroelectric power, biomass, etc. So the first one is the wind energy. Of course, it is an important alternative technology due to the developments in the turbine technology. The power generated from the wind-based turbines, which has increased significantly. So wind energy is one of the clean and sustainable energy resource. So though the windmills are utilized for energy generation, so the development of wind energy or the new windmills, which are also called as wind turbines, it appeared as early as 1890. So today, the wind generated electricity is very close in cost to the power from conventional utility generation in some locations. So here in wind energy, the wind turbines, they use the kinetic energy of the wind and it converts into mechanical energy, which is converted into electricity by a generator. So large windmills are generally grouped together in a windy area, which is called as wind farm. So the windmills in a wind farm makes it easier to feed the produced electricity into the power grid. So it has got a number of advantages compared to the fossil based power and other alternative energy. It is the fastest growing energy source in the world. So this is mainly because it is a clean energy and it can be obtained abundantly. Of course, even though wind energy has many environmental and supply advantages, there are several disadvantages. So the main disadvantage to wind power is it is unreliable. Wind does not blow at a constant rate and it does not always blow when energy is required. Next one is solar energy. Solar energy is the light and heat from the sun that is harnessed using a range of technologies such as solar power to generate electricity. So today, in the present day, photovoltaic cells, which are called as PV cells, they are used to capture the sun's energy and produce electricity. So photovoltaic cells are made up of semiconductors. So commercial or residential PV modules produce power in the range of 10 to 300 watts in a direct current. So it can significantly reduce the pollution. So regarding pollution preventions, it suggests that the producing 1000 kilowatts of electricity through solar power can reduce the emissions by 3.63 kgs of sulfur dioxide, 2.27 kgs of nitrogen oxide, and 635 kgs of carbon dioxide. So as PV technology advances, more efficient, easily affordable, reliable, and long-lasting modules will become available. So PV systems values to the energy sector, especially in residential capacities, is increasing. So next is the photovoltaic technology. Photo means light and voltaic stands for electricity. So SPV refers to the sunlight derived electricity. See, when sunlight falls on special cells called the solar cells, the electric voltage and current is generated. So a single solar cell generates 1 watt of useful power and even more depending upon its conversion capacity. So the power thus generated is fed to the battery and can be drawn whenever it is required. So SPV technology enables us to meet our power requirements, and the PV cells measuring between 100 to 125 millimeters produce between 1.1 to 1.2 watts of power. So usually 36 such cells are normally interconnected to form a solar module. So the conversion efficiency of a solar cell, it ranges between 4 to 16% depending upon the cell technology used. So this SPV technology, it is used depending upon the site characteristics. It can stand alone in home lighting systems, PV grid as in PV utility power plant, PV hybrid, that is PV wind system. So it is used as lighting and it is found as the best possible application in the form of solar lanterns, solar street lighting system, solar water pumping system, SPV for buildings, hybrid systems, etc. So next one is hydroelectric power. So hydropower is one of the efficient, reliable and economic source of energy. So the harvesting energy from water is possible due to the gravitational potential energy stored in water. So as the water flows from a high potential energy, that is high ground, to a low potential energy to the lower ground, the potential energy difference created partially converted into kinetic and in this case electric energy through the use of generator. So hydroelectric power has several significant advantages compared to the fossil-based power, and it is also when can be it is a significant when compared to the other sources of alternative energy. So next one, yes, the hybrid, that is hydropower and wind energy. Along with the solar energy, water and wind are abundantly available energy resources. So the most common form of hydropower uses dams on rivers to create large reservoirs of water. So wind power is playing a leading role in the development of renewable energy technologies. A hydropower plant producing less than 100 milliwatts of useful electric energy is said to be a small hydro power plant. The small scale hydropower is the cheapest way to power a house located away from the main grid. Working of the small hydropower plant. So, in hydropower plants, the energy of falling water is captured to generate the electricity. So, the falling water moves a turbine which runs the generator to produce the electricity. So, next one is geothermal energy. So, geothermal energy relies on heat produced under the surface of the earth. So it has a number of applications, and it could potentially it provides a significant source of renewable energy. So it is also has some disadvantages. So the two main application of geothermal energy is so producing electricity at specialized power plants and direct heating. So, geothermal plants can be expensive depending upon the factors such as how deep the wells must be drilled, and the temperature of the water or the steam is also very important. So, the plants are economically competitive, and because their fuel is free, whereas natural gas or coal plants spend two-thirds of their total operating system. So, if the HDR technology proves to be viable and safe, geothermal plants can build in closer proximity to the electricity grids and without worrying about geothermal resources like geysers. So, it will be most cost effective and enable geothermal energy to compete with other energy types. So next one is biomass energy. Biomass can be converted into fuels through a number of different processes like solid fuel combustion, pyrolysis, fermentation, catalyzed reactions, etc. So electricity is generated in many places through solid fuel combustion. So, digestion is the natural occurring process of bacteria feeding on decaying matter and making it to decompose. And this releases gases like methane, hydrogen, carbon monoxide, etc. Pyrolysis creates a product much like charcoal with double the energy density, making the fuel highly transportable and more efficient. So, the most widely used alternative fuel is the ethanol, which is created through fermentation of organic materials. So, microorganisms, especially the bacteria and yeasts, they ferment the starch, sugar, then etc. It yields the ethanol, which can be used as a fuel in a variety of applications. So, biodiesel is an increasingly popular fuel, especially in the transportation sector. So these are some of the different types of energy. So biomass resources are, see, the biomass is a plant derived organic matter available on a renewable basis, which includes the energy crops and trees, agricultural food and fodder crops, agricultural crop waste and residues, wood waste and residues of aquatic plants. So there are different ways to use the biomass. It can be directly burnt to produce heat and electricity. It can be changed to gas like fuel such as methane, or it can be changed to a liquid fuel. So it is one of the key renewable resources of the future at both small and large scale levels. So it has got a number of advantages. So this biomass technologies, they are based on direct combustion, thermochemical and biological processing. So improved cooking stoves, boilers, charcoal production through pyrolysis, gasification, production of biofuels like ethanol, biodiesel, biogas, or some of the biomass technologies and the products which are used in today. So biogas gasification is a cheap and efficient way of producing electricity. So next one is the hydropower. Which we have discussed, along with the solar energy and the biomass resources, we have the water and wind abundantly, which can be used abundantly as energy sources. So next one is ocean energy. So 70% of the Earth's surface is covered by oceans, which have the potential to supply humans with an enormous amount of renewable energy. So humans have exploited the energy potential of Earth's oceans by taking the advantage of wave movement, tides, ocean currents, and ocean thermal energy. So next one is nuclear energy. See, nuclear energy is the use of nuclear reactions that release the nuclear energy to generate heat, which most frequently it is used in steam turbines to produce electricity in a nuclear power plant. So nuclear power, it can be obtained from nuclear fission, nuclear decay, and nuclear fusion reactions. So presently, majority of the electricity from nuclear power is produced by nuclear fission of uranium and plutonium. So generating electricity from fusion power remains at the focus of international research. So nuclear power is also a clean and efficient way of boiling water to make steam, which turns turbines to produce electricity. So nuclear power plants use low enriched uranium fuel to produce electricity through a process called fission, the splitting of uranium atoms in a nuclear reactor. So nuclear power offers many benefits for the environment, and the power plants don't burn any materials, so they produce no combustion byproducts. So, and also they do not release any greenhouse gases. So it protects the nuclear plants, it protects the air quality, and it mitigates the climate change. So the nuclear power plants can continuously generate large scale around the clock electricity for months at a time without any interruption. So what are the advantages of nuclear energy? So it is 24 hours, the power generation is there, and they are not influenced by natural processes. So there is a lot of scope of planning and diversified energy sector, and there is no greenhouse gas emission. So what are the disadvantages? Disadvantages of nuclear energy. See, fossil fuels are used mostly in the road transport and mobility infrastructures. So to switch over to the nuclear power generation, it may not reduce the fossil fuels use in the transport sector. So in spite of all safety precautions in the nuclear power plants, there is a probability of nuclear accidents. So nuclear accidents at Chernobyl and Fukushima highlighted the vulnerability of the plants for accidents, particularly due to human error. So nuclear power plants have a limited lifespan, that is the establishment of the plants in addition to be technically feasible and economically feasible too. So use of nuclear energy and establishment of nuclear plants, it involves dependency on other countries for nuclear fuel and technology. So diversification in energy supplies perspectives from India. So according to the Central Electricity Authority, India's total power capacity is pegged at over 300,000 megawatt, of which 42,850 megawatt is contributed by renewable energy products and 42,783 megawatt by hydropower projects. So further experts from energy sectors, they are of the opinion that India is very much on its path to become one of the world's leading producers of green energy. So India has a diverse source of power generation ranging from conventional sources such as coal, lignite, natural gas, oil, hydropower, nuclear power, and the non-conventional sources like wind, solar, agriculture, and domestic waste. So the demand for electricity has been has been increasing rapidly due to the increase in population. So in order to cater the increasing demand for electricity, massive additions in the existing generation capacity is very much required. So the shift from the fossil fuels to renewable energy sources are due to environmental impact, and of course these sources of energy, they are clean and sustainable. So restructuring of electricity supply system with automation and implementing smart grid technology and regulating the operation and performance monitoring of power systems by regulatory commissions are some of the ways to reach the target levels in reducing the transmission losses. So, in this unit, we have studied the conventional energy sources, pros and cons of nuclear power, renewable energy technologies, and drivers of energy diversification in India. So, the fossil fuels, including the crude oil, natural gas, they are the main source of commercial energy for industrial production, heating, and transportation. So the renewable energy sources are clean and sustainable like solar, wind, biomass energy, hydrogen energy, hydropower, ocean and geothermal. So with regard to the distribution losses, it is greatly reduced by proper selection of distribution transformers, feeders, proper reorganization of distribution network, placing the shunt capacitor in appropriate places, adaptation of upgraded technology, etc. So restructuring of electricity supply system with automation and implementing the smart grid technology and regulating the operation and performance monitoring of power systems are some of the ways to reach the target levels in reducing transmission losses. So this is about the first unit, that is the energy. Second one, yes, biofuels. So, biofuel is primarily derived or produced from living matter called biomass. So, it is also known as non conventional liquid or gaseous fuels, which can be replaced or as an additive to diesel, petrol, or other fossil fuels for transport, stationary, portable, and other purposes. So the concept of biofuels is a very old concept. Rudolf Diesel, whose invention now bears his name, had envisioned vegetable oil as a fuel source for the engine. So similarly, Henry Ford expected his Model T to run on ethanol, a corn product. However, discoveries of enormous petroleum deposits kept gasoline and diesel cheap for decades, and biofuels were mostly forgotten. So, due to the increase in oil prices, along with the rising concern of energy security and global warming induced by carbon dioxide emissions, so biofuels, it has come back and it has regaining its popularity. So the fossil fuels burning is a significant contributor which raises the carbon dioxide level in the atmosphere and which is linked with the global warming. So the adverse effects of greenhouse gas emissions on the environment have been realized, and there is a quest for sustainable sources of energy for the Indian economy and consumer societies. So energy consumption in India is increasing at 6.5% per year, while global petroleum reserves are decreasing continuously. So India's share of crude oil production is about 1% of global oil production, whereas consumption amounts to 3.1% of global consumption. So India imports 82% of its crude oil demand and aims to bring down to 67% by 2022 by replacing it with renewable energy and domestic biofuels. So the biofuels are found to be appropriate for a number of reasons. So the first reason is simplicity, production through well-known agricultural technologies, potential for mitigation of global warming, the use of existing engines for their transportation, potential to facilitate worldwide mobilization around a standard set of regulations, potential as a directly available energy source with real public acceptance, more uniform distribution than the distribution of fossil fuel and nuclear resources, potential to create benefits for rural areas, including the employment. So there are different categories of biofuels. So the technologies to treat biomass for conversion into fuel can be logically placed into four different categories. So first one is the first generation biofuel. It is also called as 1G. So these are the biofuels made from sugar, starch, vegetable oil, or animal fats using the conventional technology. So the primary stock for the production of first generation biofuels are often the sugarcane juice or molasses, grain starch, which is fermented into a bioethanol, or sunflower seeds, which are pressed to produce an oil which can be converted into a biodiesel through a chemical process. So it can be produced from oil extracted from seeds or the animal fats or cooking oil. So it is biodiesel is produced by a process which is called as trans-esterification, which transform the triglycerides into biodiesel. So these cane juice or molasses, it contains enough amount of sugars which can be fermented and it can be converted into ethanol. So the other sources is also the grain starch is one of the raw material for ethanol production. So the limitation for first generation biofuels, yes, the feedstocks such as sugar, starch, vegetable oil, these are the essential sources of human foods. So these feedstocks cannot be diverted entirely for the generation of biofuels because the demand for oils and sugars increased to the point where these fuels started to compete with the food feedstock, raising the prices of these crops. So, however, significant production capacities, particularly of biodiesel, are expected to grow more because most of the non edible seed bearing tree seeds are not utilized adequately and they are going as wastes. Second one is the second generation biofuels, which is called as the 2G biofuels. They are produced from the non-food crops, which includes the lignocellulosic biomass, the residues of crops, or the waste biomass in the form of straw, stalk of wheat, rice, corn, etc. So biomass feedstock can be converted into different fuels using a range of processes to generate the cost-effective biofuels production, such as biomethanol, biodme, Fischer-Tropsch diesel, biodiesel, mixed alcohol, bio-oil, biohydrogen, syngas, biogas, etc. So lignocellulosic biomass, it is one of the most abundant plant material on the earth. So these are obtained from the farm residues, the organic fraction of municipal solid waste, industrial and urban residues. The chief fraction of this biomass, it typically the order of 35 to 50%, is a glucose polymer known as cellulose. Next is 22 to 35% is the hemicellulose. So depending upon the distribution of these sugars, the biomass also varies. So the third most significant fraction is 15 to 25% is a lignin. See, first biomass, that is cellulose, hemicellulose, and the lignin. And these components, it cannot be broken down to form the sugar molecules. Some other compounds such as plant oils, proteins, and ash make up the remaining fraction of the lignocellulosic biomass structure. So even this, similar to the first generation of biofuels, even the second generation biofuels has certain limitations. So the capital costs are much higher than the first generation plants, and the information is not available, but the best estimates for the capital cost are 3 to 5 times higher than the first generation technology. And the high capital costs combined with some operating expenses currently make these plants as less attractive than the first generation plants. So second generation biofuels are more expensive than the first generation biofuels production pathway. So next one is the third generation. The third generation biofuels. So the third generation biofuels, they are produced from algal biomass. So they have the potentiality to produce the biodiesel, bioethanol, biogas, biohydrogen, etc. So additionally, algal feedstock, it doesn't have any competition from the food and feed production. So the production of biofuel processes or transformation of algal biomass into biodiesel through trans-esterification or conversion of algal biomass into bioethanol and biohydrogen, biogas, biooil, and syngas, etc. So, the interest in algae as a potential biofuel stems from two main features. So, many algae species they are remarkably efficient at photosynthesis, which has the ability to convert the incident solar energy into biomass. So, the production of algae for processing into biofuels has a greater potential in India because of the availability of plenty of solar energy. So, for the high growth rates and near continuous harvesting is possible with algae makes them an essential alternative energy resource for biofuel. So, the limitation for this third generation biofuel, yes. So the biofuels from the third generation sources have limitations in terms of economic performance, ecological footprint, reliance on sunlight, geographical allocation, and inadequate to substitute for fossil fuels. So they are cultivated in high yields using bioreactors. So it is estimated that microalgae could produce about 10 to 300 times more oil than the traditional or dedicated energy crops in future. So, but still it is the algal based oil production. It is still a technologically immature uh, technology. So next one is 4G, that is the fourth generation biofuels. The fourth generation biofuels, it is a step further from the third generation biofuels. So it is mostly based on metabolic engineering, a powerful tool to improve the biofuel production either through genetic modification to increase the carbon dioxide capture and lipid production, as well as to develop low input fast growing energy crops with reduced fertilizers, insecticides, and water requirements. Many efforts have been made to develop fast growing, high yielding trees and also being designated to designed that sequester more carbon dioxide and make the promise of carbon negative biofuels. So, the thermochemical conversion of biomass to biofuel, coupled with carbon capture and storage technologies, they are seen as sustainable and more eco friendly. So the carbon rich crops can be converted into fuel and gases using second generation techniques. So by this way, the fourth generation biofuels contribute better to reducing the greenhouse emissions by being more carbon neutral or even carbon negative compared to the other generation biofuels. So biofuels made from biomass, they are attracting increasing interest worldwide. They can fulfill the energy new needs and contribution in energy security, mitigation of greenhouse gas emissions from the transport sectors, and also delivering the rural economic development benefits. So the first generation has specific limitation and feedstocks used for biofuels, especially the food grains, sugars, edible oil, etc. So these food substances, it cannot be diverted entirely for biofuel production. The second and the third generation technologies have enormous potential because they are produced from biomass feedstock, that is residues and waste materials, and can be converted into varieties of biofuels. So next one is the ethanol production or the biomass bioethanol is considered as a substitute for fossil energy because it is a clean burning characteristics and high octane value. So the biomass based transportation biofuels helps in reducing the carbon dioxide buildup by recycling the carbon dioxide that is liberated when ethanol is combusted as fuel. So the reason for the large volume of US production is the renewable fuel standard. So biodiesel production potential of biomass. So there is a strong energy demand which is bound to happen because of the difference in the economic sectors. So, using biodiesel in place of petrol diesel significantly reduces the carbon emissions and toxic air pollutants from on road and off road applications. So, microalgae have been recognized as a potential source for biodiesel production because of its high oil content in the form of triglycerides and rapid biomass production. So algae are the aquatic, these are the organisms that grow in aquatic environments using light and carbon dioxide. So many species of green algae like Spirogyra, chlorococcum, it contains high level of polysaccharides, and these are capable to grow all the year round using the non-agricultural land. So therefore the oil productivity of microalgae exceeds the yield of best oil seed crops. So the other renewable fuel production potential of biomass includes the seaweeds. Seaweeds are considered as Seaweeds are considered as an excellent feedstock for anaerobic digestion and biogas production. So various algae species like Cinerasmus, Spirulina, Euglena, and Alba, they have been reported as a good source and suitable for biogas production. So some of the green algal species like Ketomorpha littoria, with the generation of 80.5 liters of biogas per kg of dry biomass under 299 psi pressure. So there are a number of algae and seaweeds which can be used as a potential source of biofuel. So to conclude the second unit, so biofuels holds the greatest potential to provide a more sustainable energy source for the transport and other sectors if produced sensibly. And the biofuels offer several environmental benefits over the fossil fuels. So the 1G biofuels have increasing concern over potential conflicts with food supplies and land production. So biofuels of 2G and 4G biofuel technology has been reviewed to contribute to the future energy, and there are many successful developments in the areas of enzyme production and cell biology related to generating more biofuels, and it will further reduce the cost of biofuel production and make it more competitive to fossil fuels in the near future. So next is, this is about the second unit. The third unit is industry. See, industrial processes, they are highly energy intensive, and it accounts approximately 30% of the global energy consumption. So industrial processes and technologies are driven by energy. So industrial processes such as metal smelting, chemical manufacturing, in addition to using enormous amount of energy, they emit greenhouse gases like methane, nitrous oxide, and certain fertilizer plants, iron and steel industries, petroleum refining plants, cement factory, paper and pulp. They are the important energy consuming industries. The socio-economic development drives energy consumption to a rising production in industrial subsectors like iron and steel, pulp and paper mill, etc. So in this decade, India has experienced its highest growth rate in industrial energy consumption, while China experienced remarkable growth in the industrial sector. So, in depth, the study of industrial sectors would throw light on the life cycle emissions to reduce the waste generation occurring during manufacturing and construction, and developing strategies to adopt circular economy based industrial initiative. So, in this unit, we are going to discuss the potential of industrial sector in climate change mitigation. So first one is the greenhouse gas emission from industries. So the industrial sectors, as I told you, it is of diverse nature. The major energy consuming industries includes the cement, chemicals, petrochemicals, iron and steel, aluminium, pulp and paper. So the GHG emissions from the industrial sectors primary includes the direct energy related carbon dioxide emissions from industry, indirect carbon dioxide emissions from the production of electricity and heat for industry, process carbon dioxide emissions, and non-carbon dioxide GHG emissions. So the carbon dioxide emissions are from the activities that include but not limited to fossil fuel combustion, fossil fuel use in industries like cement, chemical processing units, metal smelting, etc. The greenhouse gas emissions from the industrial sector, it can be minimized by adaptation of energy and material efficiency measures. So industry can minimize the GHG emissions through the life cycle emissions approaches to reduce the waste generation occurring during manufacturing and construction, developing strategies, etc. So the need of the hour is to develop strategies to improve the emissions efficiency, material use efficiency, and product service efficiency, which is coupled with the measures to reduce the demand and increase the possibility to recycle and reuse the materials and the products. So the material use efficiency can be adopted by following certain measures to reduce the scrap and designing new products which are efficient and sustainable. India's industrial sector is the largest carbon dioxide emitter worldwide. So, improving the industrial carbon dioxide emission efficiency it plays a significant role to promote the low carbon development. So, keeping this into account, this unit discusses the potential of industrial sectors for reducing the greenhouse gases by adopting various measures for energy efficiency, emission efficiency, material efficiency, and production efficiency. The GHG reduction from the industrial sector, it demands innovative technologies and mitigation strategies. It can be achieved by adopting production related and demand related strategies. So production related strategies aims to improve the industrial process efficiencies, and the demand related strategies aims at reducing the demand for the product. So the demand for the materials like steel, cement, etc. would increase by 2050 to an extent of 45 to 60% as compared to 2010. Hence, in order to reduce the GHG emissions from the industrial sector, measures should be way beyond the current practices. So, aim towards low carbon industrial processes includes reliance on renewable energy sources and minimizing the process energy. So, what are the mitigation? How to reduce the mitigation strategies? So, production related to strategies are mainly geared towards improving industrial processes efficiency. So, three main strategies are emission efficiency, energy efficiency, and material efficiency. Emission efficiency, reducing the amount of emissions per unit of energy used by switching to low carbon energy sources. Energy efficiency, improving the ratio of energy consumption to production of materials. Material efficiency, reducing the amount of raw material to create a product. So demand related strategies are focused on reducing the overall use of product material by changing the demand for industrial product. So these strategies include the reuse, recycling, substitution with less energy and GHG intensive materials, and using materials more efficiently. So the demand related strategies are the product service efficiency, using products for a longer and more intensely it can help to reduce the amount of product created. And the demand reduction, reducing the overall demand for new products, for example through reuse and recycling, will reduce the emissions. So to conclude the third unit, so limiting industrial carbon dioxide emission is crucial to reduce the risk of climate change, but it looks very challenging and warrants policy attention. So due to the energy intensive fossil fuel dependent processes, carbon dioxide emissions from heavy industries form a large segment of global emissions. So production and associated carbon dioxide emissions are predicted to continue to rise as developing countries grow and seek to improve their standards of living. So reducing emissions from industry requires a sustained and focused effort. So the options for reducing industrial carbon dioxide emissions and also the energy efficiency, emission efficiency pertaining the industrial sector have been discussed in this unit. So industrial sector has potential to mitigate climate change, and there is a direct need to promote climate resilient industry in order to achieve the sustainable development goals. So this is about the industry where where it can reduce the greenhouse gas emission and the emission of especially the emission of carbon dioxide. So the fourth unit is transport system. See, in the year 2018, the global emissions in energy sector, it has risen, out of which the power sector accounted for almost two-thirds of the demand. So countries such as China, India recorded a net increase in the greenhouse gas emission, while it declined for countries such as Germany, Japan, Mexico, France. Across the world, both developing and developed countries are trying to reduce the emission of greenhouse gases. So one of the means of addressing the increased GHG emissions is increasing the fuel efficiency. So apart from fuel efficiency, travel demand and the net carbon balance of fuel supply, it should also be addressed. So in order to understand the progress in the domain of fuel efficiency in the near future, the efficiency compatible design strategies, it should be considered in addition to the improvements in technical efficiency. So further in this unit, we are going to discuss the drivers of emission intensity and fuel efficiency technologies. The global average annual concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere was 407.4 ppm in 2018, higher by 2.4 ppm since 2017. So during the pre-industrial times, carbon dioxide levels ranged between 180 to 280 ppm. Since then, carbon dioxide concentration has been continuously increasing as a result of rising industrialization and globalization. So due to advancement in energy efficiency and low carbon technology deployment, carbon dioxide emissions stagnated despite expansion in global economy. So as a result, carbon dioxide emission increased for every 1% gain in global economic output. So, however, despite growth in coal use, fuel switching between coal and gas accelerated in 2018, reducing the carbon intensity of global energy use. So, this switch was prominent in China and US, which reduced the emissions by 45 to 40 MT respectively. So, the energy from the renewable sources and nuclear plants has helped in reducing the emission load slightly. So the concept of auto efficiency is there is a direct relationship between GHG emissions and the efficiency of motor vehicles. So two products of life cycle needs to be looked into. One is cradle to grave materials cycle. This deals with the production and disposal of the vehicle and its components. Cradle to grave. Second one is well to wheels life cycle. This deals with the production and consumption of motor fuel. So an example proving the relationship between GHG emissions and motor vehicles efficiency, where the breakdown of for a typical US light duty vehicle running on a gasoline is represented in the figure, but the figure I could not capture it. So about 70% of the combined life cycle GHG emissions is from the tailpipe during vehicle operation, that is end use operation. End-use emissions depend on fuel chemistry, while upstream emissions depend on the rate of fuel consumption. So major portion of GHG emissions depend on the fuel systems of vehicles, which further depend on vehicle energy intensity. So if automotive end-use efficiency can be improved, then great reductions in GHG emissions can be achieved. So further, a new plan has been announced to develop the standards to cover the model years 2017 to 2025. So efficiency and GHG emissions. See, although the auto efficiency is an important parameter, it solely cannot address the energy and climate issues. So automobiles are not the sole mode of transportation. So, besides their efficiency, travel demand and the fuel supply system determine the oil demand and GHG emissions. So, in order to address the vehicle regulations, which focuses on the efficiency within policy framework for addressing the climate change issues by linking the vehicle efficiency needs to target overall the greenhouse gas reduction. So the impact of carbon-based fuels needs to be reduced and use of biofuels or cleaner sources of energy needs to be encouraged. But these sources have their own limitations in terms of efficiency, performance, and cost. So the design strategies for automotive energy efficiency, yes. So firstly, to develop a set of baseline vehicle class, either real or transport system theoretical, that will possess the attributes of that class. Second one, to identify the technology which reduces the fuel consumption. Third one, to determine the applicability of each technology to the various vehicle classes. Fourth one, to estimate the technology's preliminary impact on fuel consumption and cost. Determine the optimum cost effective in a widely accessible database. Utilize FSS modeling software to progress through each technology pathway for each vehicle class to obtain the final incremental efforts of adding each technology. So you have different types like full system simulation, original equipment manufacturers, trade-offs, calibration, partial discrete approximation, simulation models, etc. So the technology assessment, incremental approach versus fundamental analysis. The technology assessments are carried to support to set the standards working from make and model level data characterizing technology modifications. The fundamental approach focuses on clean vehicle designs, improved performance levels, and efficiency potential. So, various studies have been carried out from time to time to study the incremental approach as well as fundamental analysis. So, with the advancement of technology, it is estimated that to triple the fuel efficiency by 2035 to increase the performance of the vehicles. So, although this program was terminated before its fruitful realization, yet PNGV concept cars using diesel hybrid powertrains were publicly displayed in January 2000. So, energy efficiency across the globe increased in 2018 with global primary energy intensity falling by 1.3%. So in 2015, the global energy intensity dropped from 3% in 2015, 1.9% in 2017. So this decrease in energy intensity implies that efficiency balanced 40% less carbon dioxide emissions in 2018 compared to 2017. So the improvement is far lesser than the expected due to the lack of strict implementation of energy efficiency policies. So, as such, one third of the final energy use is covered by mandatory energy efficiency policies, and it requires further existing of these efficiency policies. So, drivers of emission intensity. So, total GHG emissions are a function of vehicle miles traveled, fuel economy, and fuel intensity. So, vehicle miles are traveled with the improvements in fuel efficiency and tailpipe emission reduction. There has been strong growth of vehicle miles traveled trends over the past 3 decades. So, this trend it continues to increase the near future due to the development of due to economic and population growth. So, reduction in VMT, that is vehicle miles traveled, requires a series of strategic steps like to encourage the drivers to travel by modes other than the personal vehicles, higher use of public vehicles, carpooling, biking, walking, etc. Changes in land use and built environment can play a significant role in reducing the vehicle miles traveled within 2050. Land use changes and changes in lifestyle, cultural values could prove to be instrumental in reducing the vehicle miles traveled. The fuel economy is the inverse of fuel consumption, which in turn maps a travel activity based measure of fuel energy intensity. So most of the vehicle technologies in recent years have enhanced their performance with vehicle power and mass increasing as fuel economy remains stable. So the primary factor for increased fuel economy in USA since the first oil shocks in 1973 have been the corporate average fuel economy regulations. So the average fuel economy of new LDVs had risen by 13.1 to 20.5 mpg as a result of CAFE standards. So in the current times, it is estimated that LDVs would have approximately 10 to 25% greater fuel economy. So besides conscious behavioral changes among drivers such as moderated acceleration and solutions to increase urban congestion can help in increasing fuel economy over the long term. Next one is fuel carbon intensity. To achieve high reduction in fuel carbon intensity, it becomes essential to use low carbon energy resources for transportation fuels. So another factor that has to be looked into is the vehicles with internal combustion engines can use the liquid biofuels, synfuels, or hydrogen. The vehicles with storage batteries can use electricity, and vehicles with fuel cells can use hydrogen. So all the fuel energy sources results in the production of electricity or hydrogen or liquid biofuels or synth biofuels. So although the future prediction for markets and carbon intensity for these sources are uncertain, yet several estimations and AEO projections reveal that the overall fuel carbon intensity for transportation fuels could increase by 5 to 10%, especially if indirect land use changes from biofuels are not managed. So the light duty vehicles represents the largest portion of the world transport energy use and carbon dioxide emission. So in order to reduce the fuel use and the GHG emission in vehicles, so you can improve the conversion of fuel energy into useful work by improving the drivetrain efficiency and recapturing energy losses to reduce the loads from aerodynamic forces, rolling resistance, and losses associated with accelerating the vehicle and hill climbing that the vehicle must overcome. So increasing the drivetrain efficiency and recapturing energy losses, it is by minimizing the energy losses, idling losses, drivetrain losses, overcoming inertia and braking losses, rolling resistance, aerodynamic drag, accessories, etc. So some other technology improvements observed in increasing the efficiency are: first one is direct injection. Turbocharged direct injection in gasoline engines are expected to reduce the fuel consumption to control the intake valve and other engine technologies. So the advanced 6 and 7 speed transmission automatics are being introduced for fuel economy improvements. So continuously variable transmissions that had been earlier limited to low power drivetrains are gradually moving into large vehicles. So the hybrid electric drivetrains combine a conventional internal combustion engine with an electric drivetrain, and the battery is recharged by regenerative braking and energy charging. So hybrid drivetrains combine a conventional internal combustion engine with an electric drivetrain, and the battery is recharged, and plug-in hybrids obtain part of their energy from the electrical grid. And further hybrids have energy by shutting down the engine using motor to boost power during acceleration, shifting power steering and other accessories to electric operation that is more efficient operation. So implications of climate cooperation, IPCC reports on climate change have been continuously highlighting of raising the GHG emissions. So new technologies are required not only to meet the growing demand for vehicles, but also to reduce the impact on energy intensity in transportation system. A good example is the electric vehicles, including the battery electric vehicles, plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, which are fully or partially driven by electricity and thus emit lesser greenhouse gas. So the solution calls for cooperation among the countries of the world to minimize the impact of climate change. So to conclude this topic, that is the fourth unit, the transportation. So it becomes imperative to understand the role of vehicles in greenhouse gas emission. Different categories of automobiles, such as light vehicles, fleet trucks, fleet drivetrains, and hybrid trains, have different characteristics and varied mode of operation. As such, the emissions by each of these categories, it results in varied energy intensity and fuel economy. So, thus, the drivers of fuel emission intensity, such as VMT, the fuel economy, fuel carbon intensity, has a crucial role to play in mitigating the increased GHG emissions. So, technology related to vehicle design has been in research and prototype phase for the last few decades. However, the success is very limited. So, therefore, auto efficiency design focuses not only to improve the fuel efficiency but also to reducing the energy intensity is the need of the hour for reducing fuel consumption and limiting the greenhouse gas emission from the transportation sector. So, this is about the third block of AVV 023, that is energy, industry, and transport system. So this block 3, as we know that there are 4 units. First one is energy systems, which focuses on renewable and non-renewable sources. The non-renewable sources are the petroleum, then the coal, natural gas, renewable energy resources or wind energy, solar energy, so then the hydropower, hydroelectric power, then you have the geothermal, biomass energy, ocean energy, nuclear energy, then so this is about the first unit, that is energy. Second one is biofuels. So biofuels, you have different types of biofuels. The first generation, second generation, third generation, fourth generation biofuels, and each one has its own advantages and limitations. And the biodiesel production potential of biomass, then the conclusion of the second unit. Then the third unit is regarding with the industry. So here we have to study the industrial processes, the various industry which emits the greenhouse gases, and how to mitigate and adapt to these gases and the GHG emission from industries, then potential of industrial sector for reducing the greenhouse gas emission. Mitigation strategies includes the emission efficiency, energy efficiency, and the material efficiency. The next unit is the transport systems, global energy emissions, concept of auto efficiency and GHG emissions, design strategies for automotive energy efficiency, then technology assessment, incremental approach versus fundamental analysis, emission intensity, then drivers of emission intensity, that is the energy intensity, fuel mix and fuel carbon intensity, fuel efficiency technologies, and increasing the drivetrain efficiency and recapturing the energy resources, the improvement in transmission, hybrid drive trains, implications for climatic cooperation, etc. So today we have discussed the third block, that is energy, industry, and transport system. So tomorrow at the same time, that is at 6 o'clock, we are going to discuss the last block, that is the block 4 of MEV 023, human health, building, and waste management. So tomorrow we shall discuss the last block of MEV 023. Thank you.